Today is November 20th, 1996. I'm going to be calling Steve Malner. Hey, my name's Terry Carter, and the reason I'm calling is I talked with Brooks, and he gave me your name and number on an article that he thought it might have came with you, through you. Some things I've been tracking down. It was about, had to do with Johnny Brewer and Indian from Canada who came through and was deciphering some of his plates. Do you know about that?
Well, that's what he claims happened.
Okay, so you don't. Did you talk with Brewer on that, or?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I met with him in there, Moroni.
So, do you know who that Indian was in Canada, or?
Well, I thought he might have claimed he was Apache lineage, but I don't know. He claims that he had been taught this language or whatever all down through 57 generations.
Huh.
And so
on I know there's about 4 different styles of writings in that, and all of them are just one type of it, or?
Well, they give him eight or 4, I don't know, plates, and he said he couldn't read any of them but this one, and that was his ancestors.
So just the one style of writing he could read.
The others he couldn't, and he said this had to do with his ancestry.
Okay.
And he apparently translated or some of it
right.
for Brewer, and it talked about some ancient people and leaders and crap like that.
Yeah. Okay. Also, what I'm tracking down is I found a group of symbols here in Provo that some people feel have to deal with that kind of stuff. And since then, I've tracked down 22 sites of these symbols in the western United States. And so that's kind of why I'm tracking that down. But also, I was wondering, in your book, I've also bought a couple cases of your books from you and sell them. I run a small little metal detector store out of my home, the Treasure Hunter's Hideout.
Oh, yeah.
And
my son-in-law brought a few down to you.
Yeah, I went up to him up in Salt Lake and got a couple cases from him. But in your book, it talks about an ancient temple, 9 Mile Canyon.
Yeah.
And it said the U of U or one of them was working on it. Do you know if they ever found anything, or what's
Indian Canyon?
Indian Canyon.
Well, it's supposed to be all fenced off. I didn't know anything about it.
It was just in
story, 'cause that's what,
it was just in Rhoads' papers,
Rhoads claim he went out to it, got to it, and it was all fenced off.
Ah. Okay.
And I think it could be found. If somebody was interested in going up that canyon.
Okay.
Doing real research, and it's Indian Canyon.
All righty.
Well, you're sitting on the big stuff right there in Provo, Salem area.
Which deal? I just
the pyramids that are covered over there by the silt.
By the what?
By the silt of the lake.
Now tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there's supposed to be several there.
Of the pyramids.
Have been covered over along the Salem mountain line there, back towards the Dream Mine area.
Now, I've heard mentions of a pyramid, but I didn't know exactly what it was talking about over by the...
but there's supposed to also be homes back into those mountains that have been dug. There's all kinds of stuff there up Water Canyon.
Okay.
And see, that's where the old tunnel is, and engravings on the wall and all that good stuff.
Well, there's that petroglyph there in Water Canyon there.
What is it? What exactly is it?
I've never seen it, but people describe it to me that it's of like llamas or something like that going into a tunnel loaded down with, and then coming back out empty.
What about the other way around? Going in empty and coming out loaded.
Well, it could be that way too, I guess.
That's right.
Never thought about that.
I mean, just because and that was an inscription that stuff is gone.
Huh.
I mean, why would they're hiding a treasure, why would you indicate that you're taking it in?
Well, you're right. That's
the smart people
You're
know
right.
that now it's gone. No sense even trying to dig it back into this hole and find it, because it's all been removed according to this symbol here.
That could be.
That's right. So
That could
people
be.
get their priorities thinking somebody's going to tell them where the treasure is. Hey,
Right.
why would somebody, if they're going to hide it, going to tell somebody where it's at?
That's true.
That's stupidity.
That's true.
So anyway,
You familiar with these? Well, you must be if you've been to Brewers, talking with Brewer. The symbols there in Fillmore and Nephi and Manti and all that.
no, I don't.
They're a form
All
of.
this symbol crap doesn't mean diddly to me. All I know is there's guardians.
Okay.
For
Now,
the
I've heard
treasure site.
I've heard that there's a guardian Indian that guards along the Wasatch Front here.
Well, I don't know if he's an Indian. He's a white guy that guards the Salem area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a white guy. So he's the one that's guarding these ancient treasures.
So how big was he?
8 foot.
See, that's the size of Brewer's mummies. Also back east, they found some mummies that size. And at one of these sites that these same type of symbols, there's a handprint. Like they took and dipped their hand in paint or blood or something and put it over the symbol, the size of their hand. And you can still, the lichen's grown over where the paint was, and so the paint's gone, but you can see the shadow of the hand. The hand print, I took a tracing of that, is huge, a lot huger than my hand. It had to come from a big person.
Oh.
And then also some of them...
That cliff or wall is not movable, huh?
It's on a huge flat stone laying down.
Was that the one down St. George?
No, this is California.
Oh.
And then also took some pictures of them symbols near there where the handprints didn't show up, but when I got my pictures back, the handprints showed up on my pictures. So I couldn't see them with my eye.
Oh.
But anyways, these symbols, they're everybody thinks different things, but everybody agrees they're a form of Egyptian, these symbols. And so,
well, I've had people in my office that have been inside some of these treasure rooms.
Well,
but they forbid. The one guy, I mean, he was from Salem.
Uh-huh.
He come clear out here to talk to me, and I didn't get his name because I didn't want to know his name. But
right.
He told me a story, and he didn't understand all the stuff that's going on, other than that he thought that the guy that told him where the treasure was from this world.
Huh.
But maybe he is. But after he told the things that happened to him, I said, well, was this guy for real? And he said, yeah. And after he told me 3 times, I made him tell me again. And I said, well, how do you know he was real? He said, because when he left, he stuck his hand out. And I said, well, did you feel it? And he said, yeah. And then I said, well, what did he say? He said, remember, this is the test. Now, see, this guy didn't even know what was going on here.
Huh.
And somehow, whether it's a heavenly person or a person that can shake hands and you can feel it, they are dressed. He claims this was a 1994 American Indian, and I claim that it was somebody else besides the person that he claims was living today. It could have been somebody from anciently or whatever. But he took him in to the treasure room, and he said before he went, he had to make a vow that he would never return. He could never take any of the gold, because all he said was he wanted to see it. He wasn't that smart enough to figure it out. So when he went in, he said the guy lifted up a big rock with one hand.
Huh.
And it was on a hinge. He lifted it up, and it went down. Steps went down into the earth. He went down in there, and he said, Steve, there was more gold than you can shake a stick at.
Huh.
Stacked on the side of the wall. Well, then he claims that the guy told him there are other deposits in that area, and that area happened to be soapstone up from Woodland near Camas, up that canyon going towards Canna.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, because of this area, he went back looking for, or sent people back looking for other deposits. But he doesn't dare go back himself because he made a vow that he would never take anybody back.
Well, if something happened like to me too, I guess I wouldn't either. That'd be kind of spooky.
But
Go ahead.
The other guy that is from Ogden was also taken in, but he was allowed to take all he could carry, but he could never come back.
What's do you know his name?
No. His partner was here in my office several times, and so they even hired a helicopter. This guy was down the canyon with walkie-talkies and trying to tell him where to go. And they were up on the mountain because he's afraid to go back. Well, they didn't find diddly. And he's a very wealthy man today because he was able to carry out a few gold bars. And if you can carry out a couple gold bars, $250,000 each, you can...
I personally know a guy from Ogden who claims, and I don't think he'd lie to me, that he's been in several of these depositories, he calls them, with records and gold and stuff. That he says he doesn't take anything out, but he's been dynamiting them closed, he says, blocking them off, and he ended up with some gold bars and stuff that I got to hold. And he wouldn't never tell me where they came from, or wouldn't never say anything about it. In fact, I asked him, I says, where'd this come from? And he didn't say anything. I just thought he didn't hear me. So I asked again, and he never said anything again. He just ignored me, wouldn't tell me. So,
well,
interesting.
All I know is when the time's right, I quit looking.
You have quit looking, you say? Or
Yeah, 5 years ago.
why's that?
Because the sacred stuff, you're not going to get it anyway.
I agree with that. If it's not meant to be found, it won't be.
And the whole purpose of this life, if you can show me one time in the history of man where the Creator used gold for His purposes, then let's go get it. But see, I can't find anywhere.
Now, I was told, now I don't know how true it is, but I was told that the ancients used to ingest the gold, some kind of a healing thing, or
Well,
don't know,
could be very
don't know how
true.
true it is, but that's what I've heard.
I'm selling a product called Gold and Silver.
Uh-huh.
It's a colloidal solution
Uh-huh.
that does provide the spark between the muscles in your body. And without it, you deteriorate. And
Really?
And you've probably heard of people getting gold shots that had cancer.
I've never heard of that.
Well,
I
mean, our bodies, and I kept wondering, when is all this stuff going to come out? Well, the records will come out during the millennium. Now, whether the millennium has started or not, I'm not going to discuss that issue. Some people say it has, and some people say it hasn't. When we talk about all the rumors of the gold deposits, yes, they could be there, but it's the real knowledge of records that is the real value. Mountains are so full of all this bullion bars, there's no real value because it'll be so common. So when we start talking about gold and records, now see, I've had Indians come to me and tell me that the records are on big crystals. Now, what does a little crystal chip, computer chip, consist of? You put it in a computer, and it holds 50 books.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Well, the Indians are now saying that these computer concept, the ancient civilization already had that. And it was all lost. We're just getting back to where we were before the destruction. If these records are in fact crystals, then we got eons of time. And those crystals, according to Indian legend, you cannot get by the crystals because they have such powerful energy coming off of them. We're here with this mortal, stupid body that has no function except to live and die because we can't go anywhere with it.
Uh-huh.
But once our spirits have the ability to leave our bodies, and I've had people tell me their experiences, they've traveled all around. One old Indian in Oklahoma has told me, he's 126, that he made a visitation to the Uintas by spirit. He left his body in his teepee through a vision quest and come back. And he said, the records are safe. I'm not worried.
Well, I've never heard the crystal theory, but I do know that there is records on plates and whatnot by the tons, especially in South America area. Kimball even met with a guy, Juan Moritz, on some of them subterranean worlds that came out of Peru, and they even formed an expedition, was going to go in there, and then the guy didn't trust him. Something happened. I got the story on that from one of the guys that was involved. But I know there is all kinds of records that are not on.
Well, I have had the agent in my office that claims that he sold 10 metric ton of gold, and he was the agent that handled the transaction. This agent said he went into the room, and it was about a 4-hour drive from Salt Lake City. And he says he saw more gold than he knew existed.
Really?
And he thought it was in the central part of the state near Fillmore.
Huh.
Where he went in.
Really?
Well, there's so much out there.
But the Egyptian, what kind of Egyptian stuff was that? Do you know?
Well, I don't know. And see,
I've been tracking down Egyptian stuff that's been found near these symbols. You know, there was several Egyptian belts found that are just dissimilar enough that they was made by hand, but they're the exact same. You know, they had Egyptian hieroglyphs and stuff on it. In Pocatello, Idaho, where one of these symbols is, there was an Egyptian alabaster rock that was in the form of an egg that had writings on it, and they found this in 1918, I think it was. They just thought it was Indian writing on this egg. They didn't. Anyways, when King Tut's tomb came around in 1970, whatever, this lady was in the dentist office, and I was talking with her, and she said that she noticed, you know, in this book on the Smithsonian about King Tut's tomb, that there were some of these markings on some of his stuff was the exact same markings on this egg, and her great grandmother had given this to her when she was a little kid. She don't know why she hung on to it, but she did, and so she took it to Berkeley, University of Berkeley in California, and they authenticated it that it was one side of the egg was King Tut's cartouche, and the other side was his high priest signature. And this egg was found in 1918, and they never broke into King Tut's tomb, I think, until 1922. So that's interesting. By these symbols, there's a lot of Egyptian artifacts being found. And that's why I'm wondering, you know, what was found there in the Grand Canyon.
Well, it's in a book called Lost Cities of North and Central America.
Lost Cities of North and Central America. Okay. Do you know who wrote that?
Well, it's back. It's back in Indiana.
Okay.
A bookstore back there called, I don't know the guy's name, but he found the documentations that the Smithsonian actually received this stuff, and the letter in reply said, if we accept this, we will have to rewrite all the history books.
Really?
And the Smithsonian is now obsolete.
Really? Huh.
I'll make a copy of that and send it to you. What's your...
Yeah, I'd like that. It's, I don't know if you know this, but the church was in there. I don't know if Brewer told you this. The church was in there talking with Brewer at the same time that the BYU came out with the stuff saying that he was fraudulent. The church, Marky Peterson and several other people went in there and was viewing the stuff, and they all concluded that Brewer was not a fraudulent deal, that he was telling the truth and it was honest. However, Brewer did get with and they did forge some plates, and they sold some.
Yeah, but
they sold them
duplicates of the original.
Right, that lost their credibility.
Right.
But now there's another guy with more credibility, and that's what I'm working on, helping him get involved with, is stuff like some things like that. But
Brewer was going to let me print his story in that book, The Lost Gold of the Una. And then at the last minute, we decided only to put 2 little pages in there about a few things.
So I got all that records, all that documentation. I had Brewer's diary, and I gave that all to printed in.
You made your mistake.
I made a big mistake there. I'm regretting it. Man, I ain't happy with him, and that was a big mistake because he didn't know anything.
I was wondering where
he didn't know anything about this. He knew a little bit about Brewer, not much, but he didn't know anything about anything else. And I handed him the whole book. The whole book. All he had to do was just rewrite it, put it in different chapters, and it was handed right over to him.
Well, see, there's still a few things left out there, but at least.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot left out. What I gave him, there's a lot left out.
Right, and see, Brewer is going to be bugged to death.
I agree with that. That makes me madder than because I've been working on that with some people which have been working on this stuff, and when Brewer did that, he's just blowing everything for me. Everything.
Right. And see, I don't know how close you were to Brewer.
I didn't know Brewer. I was working with somebody else. They was trying to get me in with Brewer, to work with Brewer, but it doesn't matter.
Have you been in the cave then? Well, I was as close to Brewer as anybody. And it took me 3 years for him to answer my letter. But when he did, then I went down and met with him. He wanted to show me the gold plates. He wanted to show me all these other things.
Brewer had some gold plates.
Right, I know it.
And also, the reason I was asking about this guy from Canada, because also Brewer showed Elder Peterson and these other people, he showed them some plates that was banded with a band. And he wanted to cut the band for Elder Peterson and show him. And the Elder Peterson declined. He says, we need to get this opened up under archaeological proof.
Right.
And so, but then that's when the BYU came out with the article that's all fraud. See, the BYU didn't know the church was in there, and the church didn't know BYU was in there. And so that's why I'm wondering about this Indian, because it talks about a band around this Indian from Canada. That's why, because he must have broken the band and checked into that.
Well, maybe he did, but Brewer gave him 8 different plates.
From 8 different boxes, right? Right.
And if he broke out the plates and they disintegrated, that's something else. But I just know that.
Now, see, Lucian Bound, he photographed all that stuff, and he was ordered by draw all his negatives and seal all his records on that. But he had a photograph of every one of that stuff at one time, and he sent it to the church.
The Ark of the Covenant, a man in southern Utah claims to have found the counterfeit.
Really?
Also, in that entry, he's found a room full of records. He says it'll take 100 years to decipher.
Really?
In another room is chock full of war artifacts. Another room is full of caskets with dead bodies in them. But he knows that people at BYU and the Council of 50, if you know who they are.
No, I don't.
Well, whether Brewer says they were after him or whether it was Harmson's group. And when Brewer told me what happened to him, he said some teenagers happened to come by on four-wheelers and saved his life.
Huh.
But he feels that, see, he was threatened by the Indians that if he brought it forward to the Mormons, he would be killed. And they killed his son.
Well, I know that, that was, it was ruled suicide, but Yeah, I know that there was some things there, and he felt like it was because he took some of this stuff out that he shouldn't have.
That's right.
Right.
He asked me to find the 8 plates that are still missing. And I ended up finding this Jessen, the Utah archaeologist.
Okay, the ones that took from Utah.
Right.
Right.
Well, and now he lives in Seattle, Washington, and he was the one that built and had funded the Museum of Natural History. And he claims that those plates that was given to him were the forged ones that Brewer had made.
And that's what the BYU claims. The ones they had was a forgery
right, they
too.
were forged. They were cut by Brewer and his friend.
Right.
But they were cut in the identical tone. And see, then what they did, Jenkins or Jennings, whoever his name is, spray painted them and sent them back east to get a letter back stating they were fraud. But see, they were so minute, they took and said that the plates had been cut recently, and that's why the tailings, they didn't do a good enough job, were still in place.
Right.
And whether they took plates that had nothing on them and inscribed them is probably what happened. But Brewer's plates are round. They have a hole in the center. What is a floppy disk?
Yep. Well, not all of them around, because I've held some of them that come out of Brewer's plates. Some of the copper ones that come in a small box.
Yeah, but the ones that I got to handle were the round ones.
Okay.
And see, on the backside of the Manti Temple, there's crates full of records. Well,
they're supposed to be right.
If they come in and the computers then see the little UPSs come out with the deal, they don't even have to type anything anymore. They scan it.
Right, they scan it.
Okay.
Yep.
That can be put into computer form right now. So when they put those discs into that computer, it's going to read it, put it out, and you talk about quickness.
That's interesting.
Of records. Well, this is what the ancient Indians in Idaho believed. At the time, and he didn't know that I was supposed to know, but he claims that he went up Water Canyon, and he has a medallion around his neck, and he's carried it his family's had it for 8 generations. And on the back side was the spot where his ancient records are buried. So he goes up to get them, and this big tall dude stopped him. Said if he didn't leave, he'd kill him. Then I asked him, and he's a full-blood Sioux. Well, I asked him what he was doing, or what kind of character this guy was that stopped him. I said, was he an Indian or a white guy? Now, here's a full-blood Sioux. He said, no, he was a white guy, Steve. And then he described from head to foot what he was wearing, what he was doing, and then he said he'd never go back. But on the front side of his medallion was a 12-pointed star. Now, that 12-pointed star is a double David.
Okay.
Now, the Ute tribe, the ancient ones here, in their old pictures, have aprons on. Now, how did this knowledge or how did this concept come into being, see? First of all, this guardian comes to somebody, an Indian lady, and she called me to tell me this story. Well, the next day, this Indian from Idaho walks in. See, and I'm trying to correlate the Indian legend and what they had to did they have the truth? The Indians will give their life that their ancestors walked and talked with the great white God.
That's right.
And he's going to come back for 1,000-year reign.
That's right.
But yet, how can they say, well, this has been passed down, I have the authority.
Yeah,
those stories were in my book, and the heirs to the Rhoads family wouldn't let me publish those concepts.
Oh, really?
The massacre that happened on south of Nephi. The mines were just up over the hill in Sanpete County.
I agree with that, just up over Wells. Yep.
That's right, where Johnny Brewers.
That's exactly 100% right.
They didn't come clear over here.
That's right, there wasn't a trail from there. There was not a trail Chicken Creek out. They was doing something there. I agree. I've thought that for a long time.
The 7 lost cities of Cibola, which is really 7 sacred underground cities, could be in the Uintas.
Right.
Now, King Omer, who was driven out of the kingdom by his son, had fled. Now, see, each generation of people built something for the new temple that's to be built. I mean, the stones, the White Temple.
Right.
Have those stones been cut?
I don't know.
Well, you haven't heard about the White Indians down in Central America, have you? They claim that the stones for the White Temple's already been cut.
Really?
And they're going to be put on barges, brought up the Mississippi River to a site unknown at this point.
Really?
They have their food substance, because when this thing happens, the call goes out. Well, see, this is the council of the chiefs of the world that have these meetings every year. Well,
I know the chiefs, all the Indian tribes have signed a pact with each other, and I think
yeah, but see, the ones in Oklahoma say they got to have the gold first.
Huh.
To fight the evil one. The evil one is that'll take away our freedoms. So if the Federal Reserve is in fact the world power,
right,
and they get ready to bring it all down, then our freedoms are taken.
Uh-huh.
The Indians believe that they will then trade train car loads for their freedom. And
that's interesting. I got a friend.
Carloads of gold bars
Huh.
that they believe have been hit up for this sole purpose.
Huh.
Now, the pyramid that's out here, you know, it could be a pyramid. It's a round knoll that's been covered over with river rock. The river's a mile and a half away. What's the river rock doing up in the mountain?
That's true.
Well, a Cherokee from Oklahoma took me up to the site.
Is this by Sugarloaf?
No, it's in Rock Creek, Utah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Shane County.
All right.
Then she wanted to take me to the depository where all the gold is.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be used to bring all the Indians under one umbrella.
Uh-huh.
When we got to where it was 4 foot of snow, drifts across the road. This was May 20th of 93. I haven't seen the woman since. Now, she had a map to the pyramid. They call it here, up on the map, the Indians refer to it the Eagle's Nest. But the door's on the north entrance. And is there a pyramid there? There could very well be. I'd like to go up there and take a track hole for about a week. We'll find out.
Well, I got a friend who, probably 5 or 6 years ago, medicine man and medicine woman of the Ute tribe said that a man would be coming to him. Anyway, it turned out being this guy, and they taught him some things, showed him some things. Anyway, he's been doing some dowsing and stuff, and he says all the gold that he's found on these maps and whatnot, it strictly goes to the Indians to buy their land back and to buy their freedom, just like what you're saying, and it can't be touched for anything else. And then he's also said records that he's found on these maps that have to go. He says they have to be brought to the Dream Mine, and he 100% believes in what he's thinking, and he claims that the largest veins of gold in the world is right there in the Uintas that are miles thick and deep and wide, and it's the main ones that go across through and break off and head for California and all this other stuff.
All you gotta do is go down to Water Canyon in Salem and you'll find the richest one. Goes right under that mountain.
Huh.
And it's major. Now, what it's going to be used for, I have no clue. Where the records are up Water Canyon, where the Indian went up there, I have no clue. Except, by chance, I happen to own the lease, the oil or the mineral lease, where this guy claims the air shaft is going to be when it's brought in. And they wanted to buy this lease of mine.
This is in Water Canyon or up in the...
Yeah, Water Canyon. On the backside of the Dream Mine. So, you know, we're talking about a whole bunch of things that I have no idea.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that...
You heard about I guess you probably heard about the trappers that got shot at by the Indians there just above, just before Santaquin, Spring Lake. You heard about that?
Well, Yeah. You know, you can't go on all this.
Well, no, other than the guys that had the diary of these trappers believed in it so much that in 1991 they paid a drilling outfit to go in there, and they paid them $10,000 to go up there and drill to look for a cavern. And they never found it, so they must have believed in it enough to spend $10,000 to do that.
Yeah, but it depends on so many things. See, back in Missouri, in Wisconsin, the guy called me 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
He said he found a cave. It's chock full of records and gold bars. He went in and took a few, but he doesn't know what to do. The property's owned by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, go get a few more bars. He says he didn't dare take them any place because, I said, I can handle that. That's no problem. I said, you bring the bars to me and I'll get your cash within 48 hours.
Uh-huh.
But you got to trust one bar, and then after that. But anyway, I said, then you go buy the place. You ever heard of King Arthur?
Yeah.
He was a redhead, tall. England legend says they never found his body.
Uh-huh.
But he came from a mythical western land. The Ute Indian legends say that they drove out a group of white people in this area. And they got on ships and took off.
Huh.
Well, you know, the Indian translation of the plates talk about this, the great king.
Uh-huh.
Well, what kind of guy, and they never found this King Arthur's body. And Brewer goes to the point and says that King Arthur is the red-headed dude with a blonde-headed wife.
Really?
And it has all the holdings of King Arthur and Guinevere.
Huh.
Now, we have a young man that had an affair with this, but if you go see the movie First Night, you see that old King Arthur. Have you seen the movie?
No, haven't.
You better go see it.
I better.
And get with it right there. And
I better.
You understand the concept. Now, the legends of King Arthur start about 400 A.D.
Uh-huh.
And see, the Hopis and the Indian nations, they had the whole run of this whole continent before these white eyes came. And they were just fulfilling prophecy, because there's only one Indian tribe today that baptizes by immersion.
Oh, really? Who's that?
The Hopi.
Huh.
And see, they got the deed to their land down there on a rock. That's why the tablets, the sacred Hopi tablets, is a deed from the Savior giving them title to their land. That's why they won't leave.
Huh.
Now, see, all these things come into play. The Indian records will come forth during the millennium. This Indian in Oklahoma says, Steve, I've been there. They're still safe. Now, his body was sitting right there in the room. But he was gone. And then they tried to kill the guy that was there witnessing all this. And luckily, he made it out. But
man.
The Paiutes will not allow us to dig an underground site down near Cedar City. And we've got the permits, and they're saying that if somebody gets there and sees the holy water, and you're not supposed to be there, you're going to die. What's the holy water? This guy says it was the water for baptism for the dead.
Huh.
And he's a Paiute lineage. They fought it. I was instrumental in putting together a book called The Lost Gold of the Uintas.
Uh-huh.
You know how long that took us?
I'll bet it took quite a while.
You know what we had at our disposal?
What?
A word processing system where we could go in and double-check every spelling, double-check every this, and we did stuff in minutes that would have taken months.
Huh.
So, no. Well, I'll get back with you sometime.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me. Have a good one. Bye.